Hi everyone. We have a very special guest today, Idon from Pentagon Games. And so one very interesting development that has happened at Zeeve, we launched the alpha testnet, the Lotus testnet for CERO, which is a decentralized sequencer last week. Idon has been involved with the CERO project and has also been involved with us as part of the Rollup as a service strategy with Pentagon Games. So we have Idon and we would love to have a chat as to, because CERO is something which is going to revolutionize how decentralized sequencing is being seen in the market. So it's not just about decentralization, it's not just about solving the front-running or MEV exploitation challenges, but it's about solving the core or hitting the core problem in the Rollup ecosystem, which is the economic sustainability of running a Rollup. So hi, Idon.
Hi, hello, thanks for having me.
Yep, so it's Idon, the stage is open to you.
Sure.
And we would love to have you here, and you can ask any questions, and I would love to answer, whatever you have regarding CERO.
Great, sure, thank you. First of all, I'm going to give a little bit of background. I run a project called Pentagon Games, and we started very early on into investing into multi-chain infrastructure. Very luckily, we were involved including Polygon as one of them, and we are very lucky to be involved actually by now. It used to be 2 projects, but now we run 2 validators for Polygon. And one of the key concerns I always have had is, okay, well, I'm just kind of running the validator, but which validator includes the 3 parts, which include, of course, the consensus, but also what we're talking about here, which is sequencing and then the data availability. So I always had concern when I think it was like 3-4 years ago when we talked about the MEV attack, right? The maximum extractable value, that I don't know what my validator really is doing and whether or not that's being taken advantage of, especially for users that might get impacted from all this MEV attack. Dr. Ravi, this is my layman's understanding is sequencing is kind of like when you are sort of kind of at a supermarket when there is a lineup or batches, but there are some spaces available so you can kind of slot in kind of different sequence, but inadvertently the sequence of it might give you a different rate, which means someone may be able to pick something, a better vegetable fruit before you, although you line up for all this time, but someone came in later but still picked a better fruit. Can you maybe explain a little bit just for the general audience, why CERO and what's the issue with the sequencing today? I think people hear about MEV. What's a good layman terms to explain that?
Yep, so one, let me lay out the standard challenges in a centralized sequencing. So what sequencing is? So when you run a rollup, the transactions happen, you need to batch the transactions, and then you roll up the batch onto the layer 1, right? That is how the rollup works. So rollup is essentially you are executing the transactions off-chain, and then you are rolling up the transactions on-chain onto the settlement layer, which is Ethereum in most of the cases. Now, while you are ordering these transactions, since if you are running a centralized sequencer, that means as a rollup operator, you can decide which all transactions you can include. So you can choose to not include some of the transactions, which does not make sense to you. Or you may choose transactions which give you more transaction fee, right? So that is what is called MEV exploitation. And this is some of the use cases which are privacy use cases does not make a difference because the users are completely ignorant or they are completely agnostic to whatever is happening, whichever data transactions are being sequenced. But if you talk about a use case like DeFi, a decentralized exchange, this can create massive, massive challenges, right? So that's why it becomes very important that the challenges like front-running or MEV exploitation should not have happened, and the sequencing should be fair and completely decentralized.
Right, and also transparent, because I think, as you mentioned, it sounds like it's also solving a censorship problem, because I think what most people don't know is, although you're running an L2, because you might be still doing centralized sequencing, so therefore you're actually controlling, you can actually censor and control the order of which the actual transaction go through. So as part of our ecosystem, we also always want to keep things as fair as possible for our users. So now, obviously we're also working with Zeeve Rollup as a service. We're running currently a Polygon CDK. And as we run that, obviously one of the key concerns for us, again, is the sequencing, because we do want to encourage ample DeFi to connect our ecosystem. And although we run a centralized sequencing, we don't have plan to kind of rearrange the order. We are interested in two things. A is how do we make sure that everyone knows it's fair, but secondly is, okay, from the use of CERO, how can we economically be able to convert where that value can be extracted by, operator to how everyone else can benefit. So as people go into this decentralized sequencing, what are some of the opportunity for us to be able to take what used to be some people taking a value, but now become a sheer value for all the participants?
Yeah, so as you rightly said, so the first part was the front-running MEV side, but that pertains to only DeFi use cases or some use cases. Now, if you see some of the other challenges, that comes to the whole economic model of running a rollup. So today, if you see the expenses side, when you run a rollup, one, there is the infrastructure cost of running the rollup. The second, there are L1 gas costs because you need to batch up the transaction and submit the transaction, the proofs of the transaction on the L1. That cost is significant. Then there are, you need to put in these straight routes and then data hashes and transaction hashes. So data availability cost itself is a significant cost. So these are all the expenses that you incur. And on the revenue side, to match this, what you have is the transaction revenue, which is the revenue that is coming in the sequencer, right? Now, if you are a rollup, you are starting your journey for the initial 6 months. If you are not able to bring in 2 million, 3 million transactions a month, your revenue side is very, very small. And it becomes very, very difficult for you to sustain your rollup, right? That is the most important problem that we are trying to solve through CERO. Bringing additional revenue streams so that it becomes much, much more economically viable for a rollup to sustain during this time. Once the transaction volume increases and they have much more sequencer revenue, then they can offset the cost or whatever expenses they are incurring, right? So that is where the new economic design comes into picture.
Okay, great. And so tell us a little bit about the CERO network itself. Also have a token. So as an operator, I believe we need to also have some of this token, but as anyone running a decentralized sequencer node, they can also benefit. Can you tell us a little bit more about that tokenomics or how that would work? Because I think a lot of people, audience might be quite interested in running, a machine for the decentralized sequencing. And I don't know if you can review about what sort of specs do they need to be able to operate.
Yeah, so one, if you talk about the architecture, it is built on Tendermint consensus. It's built using Cosmos SDK. It's a POS, dedicated POS-based chain. And then in terms of architecture, we are endeavoring to make it completely plug and play, which is right now, nobody has done that in the market. So we are connecting with, keep adding the support for all the different rollup stacks, and the rollup stacks are evolving. Today we have Optimism and Arbitrum as the major optimistic stack, and Polygon and ZK Sync as the major ZK rollups. But with Starknet, launched their ZK stack, and then Scroll is there. Linea has recently launched it, and then a few other stacks are coming in. So slowly, as we will add the support for other stacks as well. Then we are supporting Celestia, Near, Eigen, and Avail, and more DA we are going to add. So this is on the architecture standpoint. So idea is to make it much more plug and play and easy for rollups to onboard whenever they want to attach to CERO as a decentralized sequencing. Now, second, in terms of the token economics design, so we are making it very flexible. We are not enforcing another token. Right now, if you see, the design is already very complex. A rollup is launched, they may have their native token with a native token gas fee. On top of that, they are already using ETH to pay for the L1 gas fee, so they are dealing with 2 tokens. On top of that, if we enforce another token, then it becomes a nightmare to manage 3 tokens, right? So we are not enforcing our tokens. Our tokens come only into picture when somebody does not have a native token, right? And that is also becoming very, very popular right now. There are a lot of enterprise use cases who do not want to use their own native token. And now, in fact, OpenStack recently made a massive change where they are not promoting, or as part of their default stack, they are not promoting custom gas token, right? So that is slowly becoming a default because it does not make any sense for most of the chains to have their custom gas token. So there they can use CERO token. So that is how we have designed it, make it completely optional to, if they want to become part of the CERO network, still they can use their own native gas token to pay for the gas. And what we are trying to do is that the rollup, once it becomes part of the CERO network, they will be running one of the validators on the CERO network. And by becoming a validator, they will be sharing the fee across the CERO network. So it's like if CERO network has got 100 rollups running, and you are one of the rollup, then you are obviously foregoing your sequencer fee, but you are gaining from the fee of other 99 rollups, right? And that other fee from 99 rollups is going to be much more than the fee that you are foregoing on your rollup. And that makes it very, very attractive for every rollup, especially the young startups, young builders who have started their journey and do not have significant revenue to start. So that is how the token economics have been designed.
I think that's excellent because I think by the sounds of it, not only we're able to participate in terms of making everything fair, right, in terms of sequencing so that it's all decentralized. At the same time, I believe it sounds like we'll also be able to participate in different tokens from different blockchain, which our own guess for our own user base, right, Pentagon Games, is we try to share all the top blue chip gas token to all the different new users so that they can start adopting a new different blockchain. So it's a great way to kind of earn this fees by obviously doing the work, but also then sharing that to some of our premium users. So although they are not blockchain specific, they're gamers, etc., but they can still able to leverage and be able to earn from different blockchain. I think it's a really win-win for a multi-chain future. So that's really excellent. So what is next for CERO in terms? What are some of the key metrics we're trying to hit, and what are some of the things that people can engage with to kind of to be part of the next step in this journey?
Yep. So I think on the technical side, we have launched the alpha test, the Lotus testnet. The next big milestone on the tech side would be to launch the incentivized testnet in the next 6 to 8 weeks. And before that, we are working with few rollup partners and to onboard them, and that will complete the testing phase. We are partnering with few of these smart contract and VAPD players to get the audits done, so that we can launch the incentivized testnet with all the audits and few partners in place. We have right now launched with Polygon CDK and Celestia as the DA, but we want to extend and we are in touch with some of the other protocol stacks. So idea is during this time we want to forge some of a solid partnership with other protocol stacks and some of the DA players that will become part of our roadmap. So there's a clear roadmap, but we want to sequence the partners which are going to see more traction and at the same time. So idea is one on the technical side with stack to add support for first, and then but keep focus on adding more and more rollups onto the board. That's on the tech side. And the second is to build community, bring more and more rollups and validators on board. So for the incentivized, we are targeting about 20 to 25 validators. That will be a mix of rollup running validators as well as some external validators, some popular validators.
Right. So is there going to be a difference between if you're an existing validator for one of the chains, let's just say a Polygon, versus a rollup, or they have similar, they're both invited, or architecturally, if you were a Polygon validator, which you were already doing sequencing, does that change? Like technically, is there a change? And from a business angle, is there a difference?
There will be. So we are still working on the design. Right now, as per our white paper and the docs, it's pretty much the same. But we have been in discussion that, because we want to create a community of all the rollups who become part of the sequencer network. And we see that, there is a massive value that can be derived. It's not just about interoperability or intercomposability or having some additional revenue stream. But the way we envisage is that just imagine we are having 500 or 1,000 rollups who are part of one single community. And imagine the kind of exchange of value that can happen. There is immense value that people can derive from each other, right? So that is the kind of value which we see. It's a value ecosystem that can happen.
Right.
So we want to incentivize them more and more so that they drive this CERO ecosystem rather than anyone else.
Right. Yeah, I think it's really cool because, in my mind, it's kind of like, yes, I know we're in decentralization. For some reason, with all this roll-up, everyone is kind of becoming like their own independent little islands, or their own independent ecosystem, which is almost like centralized the game. But now with the decentralized sequencing, now you're kind of making everyone, first of all, do the right things, right? Be fair, because with the game we're talking about, solving the problem of most of roll-up today is running centralized sequencing, so you can reward the transaction, will do censorship resistant. So with this decentralized sequencing, first of all, everyone can now participate again. Everyone solve the same problem. So I think this is a some really, really great innovation. And I think the best part is now we can all, work with each other, right, again, to kind of be able to foster a lot more collaboration. So I think it's a fantastic idea. What was your inspiration to kind of, create this, a CERO, this decentralized sequencing network? Obviously you in the industry, you talk to a lot of different blockchain. Did you just wake up one day and say, hey, we really need to build this because, it's a big effort to, tackle, such a problem?
Yeah, so both practical approaches working with the rollups. So one, we realized on the economic design, it was very, very straightforward. We have already started seeing, not just us, but the other RAS providers and the ecosystem. Most of the rollups are struggling today to be economically viable once they have launched their rollups. So we wanted to come up with some design to make it more sustainable for rollups to launch and thrive in this ecosystem. Because one thing is clear, from a conceptually or theoretical perspective, rollups and app chains is the new paradigm and it is going to stay. But how to make it happen? Because not everyone is they should not be dependent on grants or funding just to make the business thrive. Business should be based on sound principles and fundamentals, right? But they do require some kind of support to start with. So that was one. Second is the fragmentation. Now we see that, each stack is talking about themselves, they are building their ecosystem. So it's good, we are seeing a lot of innovation. So this fragmentation is helping with the innovation. And then, we saw Restless from ZK Sync talking about 10,000 TPS with ZK. This is mind-boggling. It's amazing innovation in a span of just 2 years or 3 years, right? So fragmentation has led to massive innovation, but it has led to fragmentation, right? So that was another motivation how to bring together so that now innovation is there, but defragmenting everything so that everything comes together. So that was another reason, because end of the day, these rollups need to talk to each other, right? And we should not land into the same kind of challenges of liquidity and value exchange, etc. Because then the whole concept of value ecosystem or ecosystem itself, we talk about Ethereum ecosystem, but where is the ecosystem if we have so much of fragmentation?
Right, excellent. So from this point on, the testnet is called Lotus. Is there a reason why it's called Lotus? And can you leak about what is the next one called? Is it Lotus the car, or what's the inspiration?
Lotus is a very popular flower in India.
Yes.
And that's why, we kept the name Lotus. So probably, we may continue the rest of the testnets as well. We are still contemplating on that, but yeah, that was the idea.
Okay. Thank you. It's great. Really glad to be part of this journey. We obviously want to be right there because, as Pentagon Games, we are very forefront in terms of adopting for technology. I think this, keeping us there, but also motive and aspiration has always been multi-chain. So seeing the additional ability for us to say, hey, we're all part of this decentralized CERO network. Let's collaborate. How can we, be more inclusive? Has always been the our key operation model. Thank you for creating this excellent opportunity and solving an industry-wide problem. So really looking forward to this.
Thanks, Idon. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for sharing your views and also having an interesting chat with us. And thank you for being part of Zeeve. I think your contribution, your continuous support has been very, very important for us, both from Zeeve RAS perspective as well as for CERO.
Right. Thank you so much.